Welcome to Muscles and Magic the Gathering. You are here for one reason and one reason only. You want to learn about Breya Etherium Shaper, one of the best artifact commanders of all time, and certainly my favorite of all time. Now, why is it my favorite? Because I love collecting Magic the Gathering. You know, a lot of my monocolor decks, a lot of my two-color decks, they're my most competitive for sure. But I love the five-color decks. Why? The four-color decks as well. Breya, I'm sorry. But I love the 4 and 5 color decks because I get to display a lot of my collection. When I started in Magic the Gathering, I started playing 60-card decks. And then as I started to get a little bit more money and started to save up and things like that, I started collecting complete sets. At one point, I had over 40 complete sets. And then I decided my cards were just sitting in a binder. And a better way to display my collection would be by building commander decks. So I gravitate to these 4 and 5 color commanders because it allows me to display all the cards that I love. But listen, Breya's no slouch. Breya is a tremendous commander. So let's get right into it. Breya, Etherium Shaper. Now, Breya, when Breya enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Then you could pay 2 mana, you can sacrifice 2 artifacts, choose one. Breya deals 3 damage to target player. Target creature gets -4/-4 until the end of the turn, or you gain 5 life. So this deck, as you guessed it, we're going to make a lot of tokens, we're going to make a lot of life, and then we're going to wreak havoc all over the board, all right? Planeswalkers. This is my heaviest Planeswalker deck again because of collectability. I don't only build decks just to win, and I'll tell you, this deck is good. This deck is real good, but it wasn't just made with winning in mind. Collectability, so I have a lot of Planeswalkers in here, all right? I actually have 6 I'm going to show you. Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, a little bit higher casting cost, but a great card in this deck. Creature and Planeswalker spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. The +2 ability, Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, deals X damage to each opponent where X is the number of artifacts you control. You gain X life. The -3 ability, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. The -8 ability, exile the top 10 cards of your library, put all artifact cards from among them onto the battlefield. Tezzeret, Artifice Master. You can create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Remember I said we were going to build a lot of Thopters to work with Breya? Well, here we go. The 0 ability, draw a card. If you control 3 or more artifacts, draw 2 cards. I love card draw. Card draw in Magic the Gathering is I want to say it's underrated, but it's actually not. Card draw is huge, and I'm just pulling up my Mox Field to act as a bit of a guide as we go through the decks. By the way, all my decks are on Mox Field, and you can find a link to my Mox Field in the show notes. So if you want to take a closer look at this deck later, I got you. All right, Saheeli Rai. I love Saheeli. This might be my favorite Planeswalker of all time. Why? My son's 16 years old. We started playing Magic together when he was 4 or 5. Kaladesh was the very first set that we bought together. We bought a whole case. We went crazy. I'm like, I am introducing this kid to my greatest love. Let's go bananas, right? And so you'll see a lot of Kaladesh cards in my decks. And I just realized, I don't think I'd finished talking about Tezzeret, Artifice Master, all right? His final ability. We're going all over the place here, right? The final ability, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, search your library for a permanent card, put it on the battlefield, and shuffle your library. Game ender right there, I'll tell you that. Back to Saheeli, okay? And Kaladesh. Kaladesh is my favorite set of all time. Like I said, my son, that was the first set he got into. So you see a lot of Kaladesh cards in my sets. But Saheeli is also a great Planeswalker for an artifact deck, okay? Scry 1, Saheeli does 1 damage to each opponent. The -2 ability, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. That token gains haste. Great to work with the Blight Steel Colossus, who's probably, spoiler alert, going to make an appearance in this deck. And the final ability, search your library for 3 artifact cards, different names, put them onto the battlefield, shuffle your library. Saheeli the Gifted, all right? The +1 ability, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature. Again, we're making tokens. The next spell you cast this turn costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control as you cast it. For each artifact you control, create a token that's a copy of it. Those artifacts gain haste exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. That was the final ability. Tezzeret the Seeker. Get to untap some artifacts. You get to search your library for an artifact card with converted mana value X or less and put it onto the battlefield. And then the final one, it's basically going to make all my artifacts base power and toughness 5/5 with all the tokens I have. That can come in really handy. And then Duretti, Ingenious Iconoclast. Put a +1, not put a +1, put a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature onto the battlefield. You may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, destroy target artifact or creature, so a great little removal option in there. And then the final ability, choose target artifact in a graveyard or artifact on a battlefield, put 3 tokens that are copies of it onto the battlefield. Imagine that with the Blake Steel. Love it. All right, those are my Planeswalkers. Now let's get on to creatures, because we got a lot of artifact creatures in here. Platinum Angel. This game has won me, this card has won me a ton of games. Flying, you can't lose a game, and your opponents can't win the game. Mondrak, Glory Dominus, we want some token doublers in here, and I don't have an Anointed Procession in here. I ran out of them. And that's one of the things you'll see as I build decks. Like, everyone's going to say, why didn't you put Anointed Procession in here? Well, I only have a few of them. One's in my Vampire deck, one's in my Humans deck, one's in my Angels deck. I didn't have one for this one. I like one, sure, and it will come at some point. And that's another note. I am always upgrading my decks, so make sure you keep checking back, because I'm always doing version 2, version 3. One of the favorite things I have in my life is just tinkering with my decks and playing. I'm always moving stuff around. So even by the time you see this video, the deck list may have changed a little bit. The Esper Sentinel. Whenever an opponent casts a first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card, unless that player plays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. Again, I love card draw. The greatest $1 card in Magic the Gathering history. There it is. Talk about it every video, right? I like decks with tokens and the Mirkwood Bats. Any deck that creates tokens, this card is a monster. Whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses a life. Not one opponent, each opponent. This is a game ender right here. Like I don't understand how they made this a common, but I love this card, okay? Urza, Lord High Artificer. I'm just going to back this up. I'm not done talking about this yet. You have a treasure deck. You make treasure tokens, you need this in here. You have any deck that makes tokens, you need this in here. Your Chatterfang Squirrel deck, you need that in there. This card, like I said, my Elf deck, my Lathril deck, that card right there, okay? Urza, Lord High Artificer. Maybe the best artifact commander of all time, and I do have a high-powered blue, mono blue artifact deck. When Urza, Lord High Artificer, enters battlefield, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature. With this, creature gets 1/1 for each artifact creature you can control. In this deck, with all the tokens I'm making, that's a tremendous thing. You can tap an untapped artifact you control, add some mana, and then shuffle your library, then exile the top card until the end of the turn. You may play that card without paying its mana cost. We're going to make a lot of mana in this deck, so this is going to be fun. Jan Jansen, one of the best artificers of all time. Haste. You tap it, sacrifice an artifact creature, create 2 treasure tokens, or you sacrifice a non-creature artifact and create 2 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens. Token Central. The Goldspan Dragon. There's a treasure theme in this deck. I love treasure. It's one of my favorite things in Magic the Gathering. When they kind of came out with treasuries, I didn't know what to think about it. Like, oh, this could really work. Like, this is some great mana generation. But it's turned out to be way better than I could ever imagine. And so anytime I can make treasure tokens, I'm doing it. And this helps me get more mana out of my treasure tokens. My favorite dragon of all time, the Ancient Copper Dragon. This card has won me so many games. All right. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to put him aside. But the greatest dragon of all time. Don't at me with the Dragon. It's the Ancient Copper Dragon. It's usable in any red deck ever. Dockside Extortion is the banned card right now, but free Dockside. I want Dockside freed. I don't think it should be banned. I absolutely love the card. It had to go in here because it's a treasure token deck. And again, this is about collectability. And a lot of my friends, like, this is a bracket 4 deck. I'm looking at the definition here. We got 10 tutor cards. We got 1 extra turn card. We got 12 game changers. This deck is a monster. It's a high bracket 4 is what I call it. But the truth is I play a lot of Rule 0. Fan cards are okay at my table and in my play group. But I do have a sideboard in case, someone has an issue with that. Zorn. To double up some treasure tokens. Psy Master Thopterist. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, okay? So a way to make more tokens. And by the way, you got a treasure deck, please include Zorn from Adventures in Forgotten Realms. I said this before, I'll say it again. Super underrated set. Old Gnawbone, Zorn, it was just great. Hangerback Walker, not the greatest artifact, but again, remember what I said about Kaladesh? Me and my kid, we love Kaladesh and we love inventions. We have a bunch of them, so inventions are in our decks. Academy Manufacturer, let's make a whole bunch of tokens. You have a treasure deck, a food deck, this card goes in. The Baleful Strix, super underrated card. It's a 2-drop. It's a black and a blue. Flying Death Touch, and when it enters, draw a card. I love card draw. One of the greatest artifact creatures of all time, the Walking Ballista. Benny Brax, a great way to draw cards. We're creating tokens, we're drawing cards. Ether Sworn Canonist, a way to shut down opponents who do not play with artifacts or artifact creatures. Emery, Lurker of the Lock, a way to get artifacts back from my graveyard. If you were playing artifacts, you have blue, I would put this card in. Padim Console Innovation, the big thing I care about here. The card draw is cool, right? But artifacts you control have hexproof. Love this card. Mendicant Core Guidelight from a newer set called Ether Drift. I'm just stacking these up. Mendicant Core's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. You've got to start your engines, and at max speed, whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may pay 1, and if you do, copy it. Copy my Blightsteel Colossus. He's probably in here somewhere, right? I hope he's in here. I hope I didn't take him out. I don't think I did. But love this card. And one of the things this gives me a thing to talk about is the mana value, right? When I build decks, one of the things that I think is low-key underrated is the mana value of your deck. Now, what's mana value, Bobby Maxis? I'm glad you asked. All the cards in your deck, it's these symbols added together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The mana value of these 2 cards is 6. So say you're playing with 40 lands, just to make the math easy, and you have 60 cards. It's the mana symbols on those 60 cards. The lower the mana value, the faster your deck's going to use. My number that I preach to everybody is make your deck under 200. You want it to be competitive, get it under 200. And one that's at 160 is going to move way faster than 180. One that's at 180 is going to move something faster than it's at 200, right? And that's where that power creep becomes important. If you can get super powerful creatures for a low casting cost, they help bring the mana value of your deck down and move really fast. And this card fits the bill. It's a 2-drop. And if I have a bunch of these token artifacts out, it is going to crush it, right? Remember we were talking about the ancient Copper Dragons? Watch this. Let me get a dice. All right, let's have a little fun. So we have these 2 on the battlefield, and the ancient Copper Dragon does some damage. We roll a d20. Oh, I rolled a 20. Look at that. Not even rehearsed the luck of Bobby Maximus. But now this creature became a 20/20 immediately. So love Mendicant, all right? Hull Breacher, another one of those banned cards. They got to make this unbanned. Unban everything. Like I said, I play Rule 0. But again, I do have a sideboard. I think there's 4 banned cards in this deck. We got Tinker. Ooh, that's a spoiler. We got Hull Breacher. We got the Dockside Extortionist. We probably have a Mana Crypt, right? But I do want them to free all the cards, but we play Rule 0, and I do have sideboard if someone doesn't want to play Rule 0. Etherium Sculptor, make my artifacts cost less. The Blightsteel Colossus, one of the best creatures ever. This strikes fear into the hearts of your opponents. Trample, Infect, Indestructible. If Blightsteel Colossus would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal it and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. So I love this card. Master Transmuter, these 2 work really well together. Return an artifact you control to its owner's hand, and you may put out an artifact card from your hand onto the battlefield. So like as early as turn 4, turn 2 sometimes, you can get out the Blightsteel Colossus, which is great with this card. So I absolutely love it. Those are my creatures. And we're going to keep Ancient Copper Dragon out because I want to talk about that some more. Let's talk about our enchantments now. Rhystic Study, super oppressive card, but I love it. No surprise, it's a game changer. All right. Mechanized Production. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of Enchanted Artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. Usually I put this on a treasure token. Great, great card. All right. Smothering Tithe. And we're leaving that out because I want to talk about it more. Smothering Tithe, a way for me to make treasure tokens and punish the opponent. So I love this card. We have Unstoppable Plan, okay? It's a way at the beginning of my end step untap all non-land permanents I control. Love it. Thopter Spy Network, a way to make more tokens. Do you see? I hope you're picking up on how much, I'm not harping on it, but there's so much token generation in this deck. It is ridiculous, okay? Now, Rebel to Riches. Rebel in Riches, not to Riches. Now, let's talk about this. Whenever a creature or an opponent control dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token, which sacrifices artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. You know how many games I've won with this combo here? Right? So if I had this on a treasure token, I got to hit 8 treasure tokens. I got to get 10 treasure tokens to get this to win. There's a bit of a redundancy here, but 2 options to win is better than 1. These are both win conditions. So let's say the Ancient Copper Dragon comes out and it attacks. Let's roll a d20. 1. I went from a 20 to a 1. The worst roll ever. Let's try that again. We got a 3. We are having bad rolls. I am not demonstrating the point I am trying to demonstrate. All right, roll again. 7. Okay, there we go. We are closer. We probably just won with mechanized production. Let's roll again. A 3. I'm having really bad luck. Let's roll again. A 6. Let's roll again. A 12. Okay, there we go. Finally, that was the worst luck I've ever had rolling a d20, but I got 12. Now I instantly win the game with one of these cards. And that's why I love the Ancient Copper Dragon, and I love these 2 cards. I can't believe I rolled a 1. Like, really, Bobby Maximus? You are not the muscles in Magic the Gathering. You're just a guy that rolls 1s, apparently. But all right, those are my enchantments. And that was a little fun, but this card, the Ancient Copper Dragon, trust me, you want this in your deck. The greatest dragon ever. Now let's talk about artifacts from Ether Drift, a way to make an incredible amount of mana. Mana Vault, some mana ramp. Soul Ring, some mana ramp. Lightning Greaves, protect my commander. Unwinding Clock, a way to untap all my artifacts. Grim Monolith, mana ramp. Skull Clamp, card draw. Mana ramp, the ultimate for your mana ramp entertainment, the Mox Diamond. Actually, I have a few of these, really, really lucky. And I've been lucky, like, listen, one of the things that I'm really grateful for is I started collecting 30 years ago because I have a bunch of really, really cool cards that you'll see. I have a couple Gaia's Cradles, I have a couple Mox Diamonds, but I'm really, really grateful that I started early because I've access to some of these old school high-powered cards. So really just grateful for that. Look at that. I'm chaining extra turns together all the time in this deck. Aetherflux Reservoir. There is a life gain aspect to this deck. This card is a secondary win condition. Couple things I really need to add to this deck: a Bolus's Citadel and a Sensei's Divining Top. It creates an unlimited combo. You can win the game instantly. I just don't put them in here. I shouldn't say I don't put them in here. I didn't put them in here because they're used in others' decks. But I need to, right? I have that combo in my Lathril deck. I have that combo in my secondary Vampire deck. I have it in one of my Aristocrat decks. I need to add it to this deck. So hopefully by the time you watch this video, I've actually got a Bolus's Citadel and another Sensei's Divining Top. I think I have an extra Sensei's Divining Top. Let's see here. Just some extra cards I had laying around. Let me see if I can find one. These are just like, this is kind of like my sideboard cards that I just kind of add to. Go. Currency Converter. All right. I bet you I have a Sensei's Divining Top in here somewhere. I know I don't have an extra Bolus's Citadel. So that's something I am on the lookout for. But anyway, I want to add that combo to the deck. Okay. Just move my camera, but let's get it back square here. This is the marvels of live TV or whatever we're on. But we have the Aetherflux Reservoir. Okay. Lotus Petal. Darksteel Forge. Make all my artifacts indestructible. Really useful. High mana value, but worth it in this deck, okay? This deck runs a little higher than I want it to, 193, but it's collectability, and this deck really, really does go hard. It's still under 200. Stride Hanger Automation, a way to make some Thopter tokens and give my Thopters +1/+1. The One Ring, maybe the best game changer of all time. I'd love your thoughts on that in the comments. Mox Amber. Pithing Needle. Had to go in because it's a masterpiece, but this is a super underrated card. I actually had a game on Tabletop Jocks against Ben Bateman, Joe Johnson, and Joe the Magic Gatherer. This card pretty much won me the game. Ben has, if you know Ben, one of the best minds in Magic, great dude, has an incredible Yan Jansen or Jan Jansen artifact deck. It is tremendous. The guy can really, really build a good deck, but Pivy Needle shut that card right down. This card was the MVP of the game, and I don't think Pivy Needle gets enough credit. I'd love your thoughts on that in the comments as well. A little bit of mana ramp again. Banned card, but hopefully it's unbanned soon. I think it should be unbanned. Rule 0 for life, and the World Walker Helm, a way to create some map tokens and then copy some tokens. All right, so those are my artifacts. And then we have some instants. Enlightened Tutor, of course. Look for some artifacts or enchantments. Fabricate, a way to tutor for an artifact card. Put it in your hand. A great removal spell. The Holy Trinity. You know me. Muscles. There's the Holy Trinity of exercise. Pull-ups, push-ups, dips. If you're trying to get fit, don't sleep on that combo. But we have the Holy Trinity of tutors. Imperial Seal, Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor. Swan Song, a 1-drop counter. Fierce Guardianship, one of the best counters of all time. And then Tinker. I love Tinker. Banned, like crazy banned, because you can get out an artifact and put it on the battlefield right away. But for collectability, had to be included in this deck. And again, you don't want to play Rule 0 and you want to play with me, you want to have me on my show, I have a whole sideboard. Look at all these artifacts. Look at this. So I could just go to my artifact pile, list all my extra artifacts. You've got to be 150 artifacts in here that I can just throw in there. So just don't worry about it. I'm good. Okay. Those are my instants and sorceries. I get really excited when I show you this stuff, by the way. I am like a kid, so pardon my enthusiasm. Now let's talk about lands. We have Command Tower, Caracas, one of the best lands ever created, banned, but hopefully unbanned soon. Xander's Lounge, one of the tri-lands from Capenna. Wafine's Tower, another one of them. Artifact land, great in an artifact deck. River Pyre Verge. Caves of Kolios, Bloodstained Mire, Bleachbone Verge, Battlefield Forge, Addercar Waste, right. Shadowy Backstreet, one of those surveil lands from Murders of Karlov Manor. For my money, one of the most underrated sets of all time. You know how I figured out sets were underrated? I had 40 complete sets at one point. Pulling cards from those sets to put in my commander decks. The more cards I pulled from the set, the better I realized the set was. Adventures in Forgotten Realms, Murders of Karlov Manor, two most underrated Magic sets of all time. You heard it here first, all right? Dark Slick Shores, Sacred Foundry, Spectator Seeding, Seachrome Coast, Meticulous Archive, another one of the surveil lands, Luxury Suite, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, little bit of mana fixing. Listen, when I have 4 or 5 color decks, this is an auto include. The other one, if the deck happens to have green, Fangorn Forest, the Yavimaya card, incredible. Underground River, Undercity Sewers, maybe the most valuable of the surveil lands. The Watery Grave, Polluted Delta, Steam Vents, the Training Center, Shivan Reef, the Spirebluff Canal, Inventor's Fair. Great way to get some artifacts out of your deck. Sacrifice Inventor's Fair, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle. Activate only if you control 3 or more artifacts, so a bit of a tutor here. Fomori Vault, another great card. You pay 3, discard a card. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Put one of those cards in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. Tremendous card in an artifact deck for the big score. Spire of Industry, Treasure Vault. Remember I told you there's a treasure theme? I wasn't lying. Urza Saga, one of the best lands of all time. I don't even need to talk about it. You know what it does. Karn's Bastion, Murgonda Raceway, and the Bolt of Whispers, an artifact land. So here is my Breya deck, and I absolutely love it. Artifacts have always been one of my favorite things, and I love, like I said, the Breya's 4 colors, so I can show off all my favorite cards. Remember, when I build, it's as much about collectability as it is winning, although this deck is pretty high horsepower. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a better Breya deck than this one. But one thing on that note, I want you to notice something. These are all real cards, right? People are going to be in the comments who are like, why wouldn't you put some dual lands? Because I don't have any left. They're in my dragon deck. They're in my dinosaur deck. They're in my other 5 color decks, my elementals deck. I didn't have any left for this, so I had to choose all these other like kind of double lands, right? And that happens sometimes. One of the things that frustrates me about Magic the Gathering content is people will build a deck and they're using graphics of cards. They don't own the actual card, and they're just putting the most optimal thing together. So you search up, hey, how do I get a good Breya deck? And then someone built a $14,000 deck at Moxfield. Like, I don't have access to all these cards. I got 53 full commander decks at the time of this video. My ultimate goal is 100 commander decks, right? So I'd love for you to stay on this journey with me as I march towards 100 commander decks. But here's what I'm trying to say. Let's look at a tutor like, oh, I don't know, the Demonic Tutor. If I had 100 commander decks and I don't switch cards between them, my decks are intact, right? You want to play, you grab a deck, we play. And I try to make them roughly even, although that's almost impossible with 100 decks, right? So Demonic Tutor, let's say I had 30 black decks out of those 100. 30 decks that had black in them. I need 30 Demonic Tutors. I don't have 30 Demonic Tutors. Actually, I have like 20 of them, but who's counting? Vampire Tutor, I have a ton of those too. So that does a little better. But Imperial Seal, I've only got like 4 or 5 of these. So like, I have to do the best I can with the cards I have. And that's why I love showing off my decks, because they're real. So yeah, maybe this deck could be a little bit better. It's $2,700. I mean, it's a good deck. I'm not complaining by any means. But could it be better? Sure. If I took a bunch of dual lands out of my Dragon deck and put it in my Breya deck, I mean, that would be kind of cool. But I don't have it. So sometimes if you're wondering why I chose a certain card, why I chose a certain Planeswalker, why I chose a certain land, it's simply because that's what I had available. And that's what I do when I build decks. I'll grab like a stack of cards. Like here's a blue stack. And I'll look through it. I'll be like, ooh, what do I have to use? Right? And can this deck work? Can this card fit in this deck? Can this card fit in this deck? Oh, I really love that version of that card. Can this card fit in this deck? That's a great one for an artifact as well. Maybe I should include that in my Breya deck. I'm going to leave that out. Maybe we'll make a little alteration, because that is a tremendous artifact card. I'm always tinkering. I'm always looking for cards. I actually forgot I had an extra copy of this. So sometimes I luck out. I have a great extra copy of a card. Sometimes I don't luck out and I don't have an extra copy, but I might make that alteration right now. On that note, what would you sub in for this card? If I was going to put this in my Breya deck, what would you sub in? Leave that in the comments below. And tell me about your auto includes in Breya, because I love learning from the community and I love building decks alongside you. So, Muscles, Bobby Maximus, World's Most Powerful Nerd, Magic the Gathering, these cards right here. One more look at the greatest dragon of all time. Thank you for coming by and just sharing one of my greatest passions in life with me.